Karen's voice was a foghorn, blasting across the marina like a siren nobody asked for. "That rust bucket of yours is an eyesore, and it's gone by tomorrow, or I'll have it towed," she bellowed, her floral dress straining as she jabbed a manicured finger at my boat. The salty sparrow. The entire dock seemed to wince under her weight, but I just leaned against my boat's railing, arms crossed, letting her tirade wash over me like a bad tide. I'd been docking the Salty Sparrow at Willow Creek Marina for 12 years. Long before the HOA turned this quiet lakeside community into their personal fiefdom. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, had a knack for turning petty grievances into crusades. She was a walking caricature, 300 pounds of entitlement wrapped in a gaudy dress, her face perpetually twisted into a sneer that said she was better than everyone else. Today, her target was my boat, a modest 20-foot fishing vessel that had seen better days but still ran like a dream. Apparently, its chipped paint offended her delicate sensibilities. "You can't just park that junk here," she continued, her voice climbing an octave. "This marina is for classy boats, not your little dinghy." Behind her, 2 HOA lackeys, Tim, a nervous accountant with a clipboard, and Susan, a mousy retiree who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, nodded weakly. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle. A few dockhands lingered nearby, pretending to work but clearly eavesdropping. This wasn't just about my boat. It was about Karen flexing her power, and everyone knew it. I took a slow breath, tasting the salt and diesel in the air. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this marina's been here longer than your HOA. My boat's grandfathered in under the old rules. You've got no legal ground to touch it." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might pop a blood vessel. "Legal ground?" She spat. "I am the law around here. You'll move that boat, or I'll make sure you regret it." She stormed off, her heels clacking against the dock, leaving Tim and Susan to scurry after her like scolded puppies. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the moon like a silver mirror. But my mind was anything but. Karen's threat wasn't emptied. Already gotten old man Jenkins' vintage speedboat impounded last year over a permit violation she'd fabricated. The woman was a menace, wielding the HOA's bylaws like a club to bully anyone who didn't bow to her. But I wasn't Jenkins. I'd spent years on the water, weathering storms and hauling nets in worse conditions than Karen's tantrums. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. The next morning, I drove to the county office and pulled every record I could find on the marina. Turns out, my family had leased the land it sat on since the 1950s, a detail the HOA conveniently ignored when they started their reign of terror. The lease gave me control over the marina's access points, including the single narrow road leading to the docks. Karen's HOA might own the surrounding properties, but I held the keys to their precious waterfront. An idea sparked, dark and delicious, like the first sip of coffee after a long night. I called my buddy Mike, who owned a fencing company. "Need a rush job," I told him. "Something sturdy, 8 feet tall, and make it quick." By noon, his crew was out there, hammering posts into the ground along the marina's access road. I watched from my truck as the chain-link fence went up, cutting off the only path to the docks. The HOA's fancy yachts, Karen's included, were now trapped behind a wall of metal. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirtier. Word spread fast. By evening, a crowd had gathered, HOA members, dockhands, even a few curious locals. Karen arrived like a hurricane, her face redder than a lobster in a pot. "What is this?" she shrieked, rattling the fence like a caged animal. "You can't block our marina." I stepped out of my truck, holding up the lease papers. "Actually, Karen, I can. This land's mine to control, and I'm done with your nonsense. You want access? Move my boat yourself." The crowd murmured, some stifling laughs, others whispering in shock. Tim, the accountant, looked like he might faint, while Susan just stared at the ground. Karen's eyes bulged, and for a moment, I thought she'd try to climb the fence. Instead, she pulled out her phone, dialing furiously. "I'm calling my lawyer," she screamed. "You'll be bankrupt by the time I'm done with you." I just shrugged. Good luck with that. My lease is ironclad. The next few days were chaos. Karen rallied the HOA, holding emergency meetings in their gated community clubhouse. They sent me threatening letters, citing bylaws I wasn't subject to, and even tried bribing a tow company to drag the salty sparrow away. But the tow guy was an old fishing buddy, and he tipped me off. Meanwhile, the marina sat empty, the HOA's boats bobbing uselessly behind my fence. Their summer yacht parties were canceled, their weekend cruises grounded. The lake, once their playground, was now a taunting reminder of their overreach. I wasn't heartless, though. I offered a deal. They could have access back if they dropped their campaign against my boat. Most of the HOA members were ready to agree, Tim, and Susan practically begged me to negotiate, but Karen wouldn't budge. "We don't negotiate with peasants," she snapped at one meeting, according to a friend who'd infiltrated the crowd. Her arrogance was her undoing. The other members, tired of her tyranny, started to turn. Whispers of a vote to oust her as HOA president began to circulate. Then came the final blow. Karen, desperate to save face, tried to sneak into the marina at midnight with bolt cutters. She didn't know I'd installed security cameras after her first threat. The footage was gold. Karen, panting and sweating in her nightgown, struggling to cut the fence while muttering curses. I sent the video to every HOA member, along with a polite note, "This is who's running your show." By morning, the community was in an uproar. Karen's own neighbors turned on her, accusing her of abuse of power. The vote to remove her was unanimous. With Karen gone, the HOA caved. They signed an agreement guaranteeing the Salty Sparrow's place at the marina, and I took down the fence. The docks came alive again, but the mood was different, lighter, freer. People started talking to me, thanking me for standing up to her. Even Tim, the nervous accountant, shook my hand and muttered, "She had it coming." Karen didn't go quietly. She moved out of Willow Creek a month later, claiming the community was beneath her. Rumor has it she's terrorizing a new HOA in Florida now. But that's someone else's problem. As for me, I'm back on the Salty Sparrow, fishing under the open sky, the lake stretching out like a promise. Sometimes, you don't just fight the storm, you become it. And Karen, she learned the hard way, you don't mess with a man's boat. The end.